Carra and Nile, thank you so much for joining. I know it's been a whirlwind day. These days are always so back to back and crazy, but I thank you for taking a few minutes to talk with me about such a powerfully intense film. It was just
Yeah.
sharing before you jumped on that I knew it was going to be an intense film based on the synopsis, but especially once you get to the last half of it, it just kept pummeling me. But it's a great film, and I wanted to talk to you guys today a little bit about your characters, and thank you for being here once again.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Niall, I want to start with you. The first question being, your character of Malcolm really fuels the film's narrative and events. A young man who feels as though he has to, join the brotherhood, as he calls it, and who doesn't really see much of a future for himself. What preparation did you do to get into the right headspace to play a character like this?
Yeah, Malcolm, it's funny for me because actually, after reading the script, I instantly, found relativity in Malcolm, him just being ambitious and being hungry to learn, just in general is what really I feel like played a role with me tapping into that character, but I'm also very fortunate, to come from a household where both my parents are around and everybody around here is actually an artist as well. So, everyone's pushing me and nurturing me to go after what I want, where in Malcolm's case, it's not the same, his mother's not around, his dad isn't present. So, I looked towards people who I grew up with too. I happen to know a couple kids, friends of mine, some were past friends, some are still with me who come from households where people just aren't around like that. They're working all the time. They come from, some of them come from, lower class, communities. They grew up in the projects, and some are insanely talented too, that just don't have that friend or that parent or whoever in their life just telling them like, hey, listen, you need to pursue this and keep going. So, I kind of look towards my surroundings and just in general, in the Black community as well, there's kind of a narrative there where a lot of kids get left behind, and don't get the care that they really need, or the care that people can really provide for them, at the time, because everyone's hustling, and yeah, so most definitely that played a huge part, I feel like, in tapping into that character.
And that definitely came through, especially thinking about the back and forth exchange with Jason Biggs' character at one point where you're saying like, let me film you.
Right. Yeah.
Carra, your character in turn is a true foil for Phil in some ways.
Yeah.
And further complicates his life at a time where he's struggling with the events that have happened and his role in them and his purpose moving forward. But what also hit me watching that one sequence in particular is that your character is very similar to Jason's character in terms of the voyeuristic inclinations, we'll call it. But as a Black woman. And I thought that was such a unique approach and a unique dynamic change to the story that I didn't see coming. And it probably hit me a couple hours after I watched it. But can you talk about playing such a complex role?
Yeah, I think you use the exact words that I've been using to describe the things that attracted me to this role. Complicated, complex. I like roles that, that just have like an onion, that layers that you have to peel back, not just one thing. And a lot of times you find Black women are just so one-dimensional, sometimes the way they're written. And, they're either, a stereotype or villainized, or they're like super magical and perfect. And so I like that she exists in this gray area, and that you think she's one thing when you first meet her. And then as it goes on, you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's more there. And I really I was really excited to explore that. And I think, Phil isn't expecting that either. And I think he sees, a lot. He really recognizes what's really going on within himself by seeing those traits in Marley.
I think what's crazy, or in a good way, is that each of these characters are so well fleshed out. And as you were saying, you don't get that with every film. Some of them are just stereotypical characters or thrown in to play that role of,
Right.
throwing the character off.
Right.
But here we get to learn a little bit more about each of them, and they each play such a role in the film. For both of you, are there scenes that stand out in this film as your favorites, whether that's just it was fun to film them, or it's pivotal for you, or in your opinion for the film?
Absolutely. For me, it was definitely the scene, being able to hold the camera and record Jason. That was not only was it just powerful to me in the fact that he's basically telling Jason in that moment, and I don't want to give stuff away, but you need me in order to do this. Like I'm the art that you see. I'm what makes your world, go round, basically. And that, I really enjoyed that, because within that, I definitely really want to make, films in the future, and I want to go to being, behind the camera at some point. And kind of being able to have that reflection in Malcolm, who at this point is now inspired by Phil and wants to look at this almost as pretty much as a way out, but also as a passion. That was just really, really, really powerful for me, being able to sit with Jason. Jason's so much fun to work with. And that film, there was so many different films, even just walking around Harlem and being in Harlem, like it felt great. It was so raw. And it was like I was taking in the city again, almost like from a different eyesight. It was great.
That's great. It gives you such a genuine feel as a viewer when you're watching the film too.
Raw,
Carra, how about you?
One of a super fun scene of film was the scene where we're like making salsa in the kitchen. Salsa might not be, it's been so long, but we're cooking in the kitchen.
Right.
Me and Jason's character and Anabelle's character, she walks in and it's just really awkward. And what was so great is I hadn't met her before that day. So it was just like really genuine, like, who are you? And it was like hard to keep a straight face, because as an actor, when those moments happen, like, oh, it's like real, but
right.
I don't even have to act this, like we don't know each other. And she's like, what are you doing with my man?
It was so cold in that moment. I just watching it, like, ooh, this is not good.
Yeah.
So my last question for both of you, just recognizing time, is there's a lot of deep themes that are explored in the subject. White saviorhood, there's echoes of Black Lives Matter, filmmaker ethics, white supremacy. It's all very timely and impactful, especially given societal discourse today. What do you hope the viewers are taking away from this film after they see it? Everything
that you just mentioned, but also just with and a change of heart, more clarity, just in all those areas that you just mentioned as well, especially just with being the idea of a bystander, and if we're doing enough, taping all these things, these horrible things that are happening, in society through our phone. Are we doing enough when we speak out in on social media, and we see things go like this, and we see these online revolutions, but are you continuing to spread the message after stuff like this dies down and then something blows up again and we're back at square one? There's so many different themes that could be taken around, but I definitely feel like the idea to have another conversation, and to have this conversation more with our loved ones, with our friends, I feel like having conversations like this is one step closer to hopefully bettering society and just the world that we live in. So that's definitely something that I hope they take away, Yeah.
Thank you. Carra, how about yourself?
Yeah, I feel like a good film really sparks meaningful conversations, like what Nile just said. And, and listen, these are huge issues, and like they're overwhelming, and they can feel paralyzing because they just take on a life of their own. And I think a lot of times we can fall back because we're paralyzed by the largeness of these issues. But I think this film, I hope that it would help people see the role that they play. Like, you might not be filming a murder like Phil Waterhouse was in the film, but are you reposting it, to get
Right.
likes, or versus, getting involved in your community, and, or if there's a young person in your community that asks you to, help them, or, give them a chance to explore a new possibility, are you just brushing them off, or are you, really inspiring someone who's right next to you? So I just hope that it helps people see the role that they can play, and that these little acts do go a long way.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The thing I most enjoyed about the film is how thought-provoking it is, and it really caught me by surprise when I learned about the film, number one, but in how much I enjoyed it. And I think that comes down to not only the themes that are presented, but how accessible the film makes that discussion, and that comes through your performances. So I just commend you both on such great performances in the film, and thank you for taking the time with me today.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.